Association of Inspectors General Luncheon meeting in 2013. Glad we could have such a big crowd here today, and we're excited to see everybody. I wanted to let you know that at our December holiday meeting, you all elected a new slate to be the board of directors for our chapter meeting. The board had its first meeting in January, and in accordance with our bylaws, we had an election of officers. So I thought I'd briefly let you know who was elected to those positions. Maya Parsinski is staying as the secretary. Jerry Chestnut has agreed to continue on as our treasurer. Julie Lefteris, is Julie here today? Julie Lefteris, who's the IG at DSHMV, is the new third vice president. Al Dennis from FDLE. Al? No? Okay. Al Dennis, the inspector general at FDLE, is the second vice president. Dawn Case. Dawn, I know you're here somewhere. Raise your hand. Thank you. Dawn continues on as the first vice president, and somehow or another, I agreed to stay on as the president for another term. That's why I'm standing up here today. All right, well, so we have a brand new program chair, and our new program chair is Chris Sullivan, who's a new member of the board of directors, and Chris is responsible for working with Capital City Country Club, among other things, to put our lunch together today. There are a few changed processes, so I'd like to introduce Chris to talk about those processes, but as he's walking up here, because of your comments about our luncheon meetings and how much you would really like to see dessert included in lunches, Chris's first act as the program chair was to negotiate with the country club to get desserts included at no increase in cost. So when you're finished with your lunch, don't forget to try them out.
And it's funny you say that, Bob, because that's where I was just chasing them down to make sure we're going to get some type of dessert in the back. So hopefully by the end there'll be more desserts out for us by the end of the luncheon. There have been a couple of process changes. National AIG has implemented some new rules for CPE requirements and some standards they want us to follow. So some of the things that you're seeing being done electronically now through notification, through constant contact, is the reason we're doing some of that, is to meet those CPE requirements. So today at the table you should have received a little slip that tells you to go, please go take an online survey to receive your CPE. You take the survey. When you're done with the survey, the CPE will pop up on the screen, and just print it off and put your name in. And that will help us stay in line with the CPE requirements. The notification for each of these meetings will go out via email through constant contact. There were several people who did not receive the email. There are some agencies like DCF was completely blocked constant contact. So we will work through those issues and make sure that everybody gets contacted. So if you did not receive an email about a week and a half ago, please come see me, and we'll try to figure out why that occurred. Even within DOT, we had a couple of people that did not receive it because it got blocked for some reason or another, which makes no sense to me. To have part of an organization get it, but not the other. We are taking the email from the association, so when you register your email that you give to National, that's the email that we use. So please make sure that your information on the national list is correct. We're also taking the FIGES information off the FIGES webpage that DCF runs. So we're combining those two lists to ensure that we have a comprehensive list. We send out the email to about over 450 people. Even our friends down in South Florida salivate about our lunches that we have up here in Tallahassee. Remember, member statuses are from July 1 to June 30th. So if you have an issue with some of your member status, just remember it's on that time frame. And just check with Jessica and National, she'll help you out. If you have any suggestions for who you'd like to come speak to us, please come see me or Bob or anybody on the board and pass up those names. We greatly appreciate it. We'll put it into the survey when you take your online survey. Other than that, come see me after lunch if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now a brief treasurer's report. Jerry, if you don't mind letting everybody know what the status of our account is.
The status is $23,323 is in our checking account. The Financial records from last year are in the process of being reviewed, and as soon as that is complete, which should be very shortly, I'll publish the end of the year financial statements.
Thank you, Jerry. And one announcement before I introduce Melinda. The Association of Inspectors General is having certification institutes in Austin the end of February. The application deadline has passed for those institutes, but I did want to mention that now, the week of August 19th in Jacksonville, we'll be bringing institutes back to Florida, and that will be all three: Certified Inspector General Investigator, Auditor, and Certified Inspector General. So if you haven't been, please put that on your calendar and take advantage of that opportunity. We're only able to do that maybe once every 3 or 4 sets of institutes, because of course we have to travel around and meet the needs in other parts of the country as well. So if you're interested in one of the scholarships that we've recently announced, the Kirby Mole Memorial Scholarships, be looking for an email to come out from Chuck Faircloth, who is our chapter's Kirby Mole Memorial Scholarship Committee Chairman, and submit an application if you're interested in pursuing that. And now I'd like to introduce the president of the national chapter of the National Association of Inspectors General and our own Chief Inspector General, Melinda Miguel, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you. It's so great to see everybody here today. Thank you so very much for coming. I hope that you're enjoying the lunch. I have a wonderful honor and privilege this afternoon to present our next speaker. And our speaker today is Pete Antonacci. And Pete is the General Counsel for Governor Rick Scott. And I just started working with him at the Governor's office recently because of his recent appointment. And I'm so thrilled that he agreed to speak with us today. He has a very unique perspective in that he's served in numerous roles as public servant. And some of those include a statewide prosecutor, a deputy attorney general, as well as a state attorney. And he has numerous committee appointments where he served under 4 governors. Is that right? Do I have 4? Is that correct, Pete? And so without further ado, I would like to bring our new grandfather to the podium, if I might. Pete, if you could join us and tell us a little bit about your new granddaughter.
That's going to be easy. I hope y'all can hear me. I prefer to speak without a microphone. In September, a wonderful thing happened to me. I had my first granddaughter. And for those of you who have grandchildren, you know what I'm talking about. It certainly made coming back from beautiful Palm Beach County much easier for me, because those of you who are from South Florida know that it really is a beautiful place, and it's a beautiful place to work, even though we here in North Florida know that this is a pretty special place as well. It is a real pleasure to be back in public service. I spent 14 years of my life working in the private sector, counseling and representing clients. And in that capacity, I've even had occasion to meet with some of you. I know the last time I saw Bob Cliff, I was in his office whining on behalf of some miscreant client, and Bob was very nice about it. He remained poker faced the whole time, but we were both in on the joke. I was there on behalf of the miscreant client, and Bob was doing his job making sure that the miscreant client received some kind of rough justice. And I appreciate that, Bob. You did a great job on that case. And I see a lot of friends here. As some of you know, Tom Kerwin and I have been colleagues and friends since law school, prosecuted together, worked on many projects together, and I'm so very happy that he is in state service again, working as the IG for Jeff Atwater. He brings a wealth of experience to this task, including being responsible for the prosecution of several state officials. Tom has several collars that have names like Randy Mackey and Bo Johnson on them, for those of you who have a history of Florida. He had a 20-year career as an assistant U.S. attorney, successful career. I see Gary Mendelson. Gary Mendelson we once worked together at the state attorney's office in investigating cases, and I don't mind bragging on Gary to say that he was the best investigator at that time. I don't know who Willie has with him right now, Gary, but he was the best investigator we had, and whenever there were tough cases, Gary was the guy we went to. And much to my great surprise, I also find today that Ron Tudor and I graduated high school together many years ago. 40 or so, Ron? But there were 1,400 people in our graduating class. So it's not a great surprise that neither one of us ran into each other at the time, or at least had a recollection. Florida, particularly in the 60s, was a booming state, and places like Miami-Dade County had a hard time keeping up with the kind of expenditures it took to educate students, build roads, water systems, et cetera. So when Melinda asked me to join you today, the first thing that came to mind was, how did we get here? What's an Inspector General? What's all this about? Because, as you know, many states and most communities don't have Inspectors General. And Inspectors General are the watchdog of government, the internal watchdog of government. And some states and many communities have not reached the point where we've reached, but there was a starting point for Florida, and that starting point was 1986, when the legislature amended Chapter 20 and said that each agency was going to have a chief internal auditor. And that chief internal auditor was supposed to do all sorts of good things and keep an eye on the money, et cetera. For those of you who remember the old symbol of the comptroller's office, it was a watchdog sitting next to a strongbox with the Latin term defendo under it. I always thought that Gerald Lewis was just like the perfect watchdog of some kind. At any rate, so the Inspectors General system ran for a couple of years, and people who worked in government that cared about transparency and ethics and good governance began to see that human beings do what human beings will do. No one likes to be watched. No one likes the oversight, which makes your job a little tough. So people that have authority, people that wield power, generally don't like to be watched. And it's hard to condemn because we all share this human experience together. And so what happened during that first few years? Your predecessors found themselves in broom closets, reporting to the truck driver, having no access whatsoever to authority. And many people felt that we needed a change, and we needed a change because Florida needed better. And Florida needed better because I think there's a general sense out there in the public that we prefer good governance over bad governance. We prefer transparency over the alternative. And so in 1994, someone came along with this great idea that we were going to have something called an Inspector General and a Chief Inspector General for the governor. So I was around at the time working for the Attorney General. And so the bill started circulating around about we were going to have a Chief Inspector General and an Inspector General of each agency. And I must tell you that it was not warmly received. Most agency heads didn't like the idea that they were going to have some little ankle biter living next door to them. And what's more, they couldn't fire the ankle biter without writing a letter to the governor about it, which is what the statute says now. And I must tell you, too, that many elected officials were not particularly comfortable with the idea of having y'all around. So the bill kind of shuffled around a little bit, and finally, as we know, good things happened, and people got behind the bill and passed the bill. And in that bill, there was an additional element that was very important to Florida governance, and that is the role the Inspectors General have with respect to whistleblowing. So the whistleblowing statute, which occurred a year or two before that, was integrated into the Inspector General function, again, all for the better. So y'all have a very new history, but it's a great history, and it's a good story about Florida. I like to tell good stories about Florida when I can, because, you know, as state attorney in Palm Beach County, I didn't have a lot of good stories to tell. There's usually, you know, blood and mayhem that we have to report to the community, not good stories. And this is a good story. And this organization is part of that, because you can have a statute, and you can have the sort of compulsory part of a statute, but it really is civil society like this that makes for the support mechanisms that make for the permanence of the watchdog function that y'all perform. So it's groups like this that are essential to make sure that the world knows, and by the world I mean the political class, because the political class, believe it or not, watches you guys, just like you watch them. And it's good for them to know that you have an organization, there is strength in numbers, that you're committed to good governance, you're committed to your ethics, and you're committed to the proper way of doing things. So for that, I really salute this organization and salute all of you for the great job that you're doing on behalf of all Floridians. I mentioned local government because that was my most recent experience in Palm Beach County, and as many of you know, the Inspector General of Palm Beach County is one of our own here in Leon County, Cheryl Steckler, who many of you know has worked in a similar capacity in Florida governance. And I wanted to point out her experience to you as maybe something that you can derive some comfort from and maybe derive a lesson or two. She has a much more difficult job than you can possibly imagine. She's working with a new statute, with a very shaky oversight board that scrutinizes her contract, I think, every other year. And she has a extraordinarily skeptical county commission that is her reporting authority, even though they can't fire her by popular vote. But still, it's a very difficult job, because where do you go for support? If you're a new person in the community, you have a new legal structure, you're the person that's implementing it for the first time, what do you do to go about making sure that you can do your job and making the political class accountable? So Cheryl did one very good thing, which was to immediately set up community meetings. And so those of you who know South Florida, there's a lot of condos. Condo associations are always looking for speakers. And Cheryl has really knocked herself out going to condo associations and neighborhood associations, explaining what the role of the Inspector General is and how it can benefit the community. And of course, the ultimate benefit, not only in transparency, which is sort of a ethereal kind of thing, it's also ultimately in the wise expenditure of taxpayer monies, so that more taxpayer monies don't have to be raised. So for regular taxpayers, the idea of an IG is a very, very important thing. One thing and that was very positive, and I think she's derived a great deal of support from the community. But the thing that she didn't do, which was a mistake, and it's certainly, I'm not talking out of school here because we've talked about it, that she was not able to do or did not do, I'm not quite sure how that worked out, but she didn't have a real outreach effort with public information. Web page was very slow in going up. They haven't done social media communication. They don't have a press operation. And so keeping that public support has been very difficult for her. And I raise that maybe for a lesson for all of us here. The analogous situation here is the contact that you have with your direct area support, which is your decision-making organization. As all of us know, in every agency there's a lead person appointed by the cabinet or the governor, and there's a chief of staff. Those are your key decision makers. And much like Cheryl, in working with the community and getting the community to support her good work, it's on you. It's your responsibility to interact with those decision makers. I think by and large, in the executive branch of government, those decision makers now, almost 20 years after the passage of the Inspector General Act, have figured out that the Inspector General has enormous value for the effective operation of the agency. But you have to make yourself available, you have to make yourself known, you have to make it so that you're ready to report to work every day. Now, how you do that is something that you all figure out, of course, on your own, because every agency has its own culture. Every agency has its own set of characters and legal structure that either help or inhibit the effective operation of the IG's office. So I would say it's all on you, much like it was all on Cheryl, to make those connections and make it known to those decision makers that you're there to do your very difficult job every day, because the very difficult job you do every day is in the public interest, and it is in the long-term interest of the executive agencies that we all serve. And finally, it's been a real thrill to come back to Tallahassee and to work in the Capitol again. You know, if you would ask a man on the street to say, well, the Governor's General Counsel's office must be some huge organization. And it's much like we used to hear in court, Tom, where they talk about the state of Florida, the awesome power of the state of Florida. And the awesome power of the state of Florida was one little prosecutor standing in court with maybe Gary Mendelson in the back room, you know. And that was awesome to some people. But the awesome power of the General Counsel's office consists of 4 lawyers. So we have a very thin line. And we have a very big job to do as well to make sure that we're coordinated with all the legal services that are being provided by all the General Counsel's offices around the agencies. And in that regard, just to show how the whole spider web can work together very effectively, I hope you're working with your General Counsels, particularly with the Governor's agencies. The Cabinet and Cabinet officers, of course, are in another category. Same rule generally applies. You should be working very effectively every day that you can with your General Counsel to make sure that your General Counsel knows what the heck you do and why you do it. And helping make that General Counsel understand how important your work is to the long-term success of the service we're providing to the people of Florida. So, all that to say is, even though we have a wide network down here and we have 4 lawyers in the General Counsel's office, I hope everybody has my number. I think it's on the website. Please call me if I can be of any help to anybody. I know your chain of command is to report through the Chief Inspector General, but I'm sure she doesn't mind. If anybody has anything they need out of Governor Scott's General Counsel's office, we're here to serve you, not to be some remote figures on the 2nd floor of the Capitol. So that's my brief presentation today, and I hope that this group, knowing everything that you do, has a few questions. So, question time.
I have a question.
All right.
Can you offer any comment as it relates to the grand jury out of the Palm Beach Wellview?
Yeah, this is along the lines. This deals with Cheryl Steckler and Palm Beach County, and it gives you an idea of the enormous forces that are working against her and perhaps against you as well. Several of the high officials in county government had decided that they were going to implement some policies that they said were meant to help employees. They said, we're out here to help employees because we care about our employees, and there are 2,300 of them, and they're just all little people, and we really care about them. And so they had signs put up all over the county offices that said, if you have a problem, or if you're a whistleblower, don't go to the Inspector General. Come to your supervisor. And it was a real bad thing because immediately Cheryl saw the number of phone calls started falling off. People were looking at this sign, they were very confused, they didn't know who to go to, who to talk to. So Cheryl came to the state attorney's office and we brought the issue to the grand jury. The grand jury didn't like what the county administrator or the county manager had to say about it, and issued a very strong report. And the county officials backed down and removed all the signs and forswore doing any such thing again. Surely they'll be up to some other bad deal soon. But Cheryl will be watchful, and I know the new state attorney will be at her service as well. But it just gives you an example of the kind of small things that people can do to make your offices less effective, or your colleagues' offices, people that are in the same business. So we had a successful outcome there, but she's got an everyday fight on her hands of making sure that the people that have the information can get to the Inspector General and report what needs to be reported. Anything else? Well, good. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, Pete. We really enjoyed having you here, and we're really glad that you're back here and in town and of service to all of us who, Lord knows, need all the service we can get. And thank you to the Capital City Country Club for putting on a great lunch today. Thanks to everybody for turning out.
One small
Chris?
announcement. Please make sure you sign the sheet on your way out. If you didn't sign it on the way in, for some reason the H's through L's had a little issue today. So if you could just check on the way out, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so we'll be doing this again in April. Look for the notice. Thank you.